Hello? Can you hear me? All right, great, thank you. Oh, should I hold this?
Please.
All right, thank you. My name is Tarpley Hitt. I'm a senior at Lacrosse High School. And before coming back to some of my partner's 3 points, I'd like to rebut some of my opponents. So my opponent led with her introduction about how Sandy Hook is just a singular incident. We can't rely on that incident to infringe upon our American rights. But I would just like to point out that it is the stance of side Khan that is the imperative of the government to maximize the quantity and quality of life. So we believe that instances like Sandy Hook should matter, and they should be important to the government, and they should affect our decisions and how we govern ourselves, and that it should affect legislation, and that we should take warning from that issue and put forth legislation to make sure that they don't replicate themselves in the future. So my opponent then led with a quote from the Declaration of Independence, and among other famous lines, she read the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I'd just like to point out that the first word of that is life, which rings in our slogan that we need to maximize the quantity and quality of life, that we need to protect our citizens' life. And it is inarguable that gun violence is not related to the accessibility of guns in our society, and that in order to reduce the violence that occurs from gun-related crime, from gun accidents, we need to reduce the accessibility of guns to people in our society. She then led with the Second Amendment, and she said, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, leaving out a really important part of that Second Amendment, because the first words of that amendment is a well-regulated militia being necessary, etc., well-regulated being the key. We're not saying you can't have firearms at all. We understand that this is an important right for American citizens. We're just saying that there needs to be some line. We don't want every average Joe to be able to go out and get an arm, and get a firearm. We want to be able to make sure that these people aren't criminally insane. And but there's a limit to how many bullets you can have in your magazine clip, so you can't just open fire rampantly. We think that there are limitations on this right. And so did our founding fathers when they wrote well-regulated militia. So my opponent also then started to address some of the points that my partner brought up. And she said that criminals, what do we do about the guns that are already in circulation? Criminals will not just hand over their guns. And as my partner conceded, that increasing gun regulation isn't just going to stop crime in America. It's not just going to end all gang violence and heal all of the wounds that have ever been shot. But it's a start. And because we believe that it is that is the responsibility of the government to ensure the safety of our people, we think that it is necessary to make these efforts, to make this start, to try to chip away at the violent culture that plagues American society today. She also cited a study that said that 98% of crime in Los Angeles had involved simply brandishing the gun. But this ignores the fact that it ignores the fact that gun violence exists. That a lot of gun violence is not brandishing the gun. That a lot of gun violence is related to accidents. And so we believe that this study is sort of irrelevant, and that we still need to increase regulations on firearms in America. In response to our point about the psychological safety of our people and how detrimental growing up in a gang environment and around gang violence can be on the psyche of a teenager, she pointed out that you can download an app to learn how to use a gun. But we just don't think this is comparable to being in a society where gun violence is something that you see regularly, where you are told that guns are power, that they are something necessary for success. We just don't think that downloading an app is really at all the same thing as being surrounded by gun violence on a regular basis. And so to come back to some of my partner's points, that we believe that is the responsibility of the government to ensure the safety of our people. And this falls under 3 main umbrellas that my partner nicely outlined for you. The first is physical safety. humans are subject to their emotions. There's a lot of crimes of passion that occur, and that even a totally stand-up guy could make a mistake by just simply the accessibility of a firearm, and that can be incredibly dangerous, and that we should limit that from happening. And then there's also the instance of accidents, and that a person a family that owns a gun is 3 times more likely to be somehow involved in a gun-related accident. We think that that's a scary number. 3 seconds, 3 minutes? Okay, we think that's a scary number that we can't afford to risk. Then to come back onto our economic safety. The penal system is something that is a giant drain on the American wallet. We can't afford to keep shoveling people into the penal system because of gun-related crime. And we think that it is the responsibility of the government to minimize that crime. And we think that the way to do that is by minimizing access to firearms and guns. And then lastly, to jump back on that topic of mental safety, we think that by reducing the access to guns, by reducing the instance of violent crime, we will have some effect on the instance of violent crime, of gang crime, and the emotional stability of people that have to grow up in societies that are surrounded by and plagued by gun-related violence. And for these reasons, we are proud to propose. Thank you very much.